Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the First Strike Podcast. I am your host, and I go by the Marathon Don. On this week's episode, we're talking about the super fight, Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford, which went down last night in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, in front of 70,000 people in Raiders Stadium. Terence Crawford did what was unthinkable, what a lot of people did not expect him to do. He rose to the occasion, exceeded expectations, and dethroned the undisputed middleweight champion, Canelo Alvarez. And what a spectacle it was. Let's talk about the event. Let's talk about the layout. Netflix did a fantastic job. Riyadh season, the Prince, Turki Al-Ashi has done just a great job working with Dana White and collaborating and making this event larger than life. It is larger than life to some extent because you have generational fighters. You have all-time greats that for the first time ever decided to fight. No weight class, no rehydration, no limits, no gimmicks. It was man on man. Terence Crawford moving up in weight. Canelo agreeing to fight the smaller man that had never fought at 168 before. He had so much to lose against a smaller man, and he put it on the line to pursue greatness. And he's already great. So it was a legacy fight for both guys, outside of the tremendous amount of money that they both got paid to perform last night. It was a legacy fight for both of them. Two future Hall of Famers, two pound for pound greats meeting in the ring to settle the score. So what exactly happened last night? What went right? What went wrong for both fighters? Looking at Crawford, in taking this fight, he took a little bit of time. He did the right thing. I actually predicted that Crawford was going to win, and I betted on him last night as well. And guess who else betted on him? Floyd Mayweather. Because there's something about ring IQ that is developed over years of experience that it doesn't go away with changing of weight classes, speed, power. There's something about experience and ring IQ, and that's why there's people like Floyd Mayweather that throughout the majority of his career, he didn't take much damage because he was so strategic in his approach, so disciplined in his approach that he was able to mitigate any punches coming back, and he was a fantastic counterpuncher towards the end of his career. Look at people like Bernard Hopkins that mastered the boxing craft, and he was able to fight into his later 40s. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he was even fighting in his early 50s. So when you are a boxing first fighter, where you're putting the discipline, the art of boxing at the forefront of everything you do, is going to show in the ring. And that's something that it doesn't change regardless of weight class. Terence Crawford could have fought the bigger man, the smaller man, but with his adherence to the discipline of boxing, the strategy, the tactical side, the IQ that he developed through years of experience, he was able to successfully move up in weight and put on a masterclass of a boxing performance. Everyone was shocked at how easy he made it look. He was on the back foot, he was switching stances, he was pivoting, he was chained together punches, and something has to be said about the level of accuracy that someone like Terence Crawford had versus Canelo, and just in general over all of his opponents. Terence Crawford last night looked like the matador, and Canelo looked like a bull, just trying to chase him down aimlessly. What Terence Crawford did right, he stuck to the fundamentals of boxing. Stick and move, stick and move. He literally was working off that back foot. He was switching stances. He was chaining together very, very accurate punches. Anytime Canelo got close, he popped him and just continued to stay very, very disciplined. And he outworked him, outpaced him. What he did right was he had fantastic footwork. He was able to work off the jab, constantly backpedaling, moving around, working the angles, pivoting. And I think that really prevented Canelo from getting anything started. Canelo looked hesitant. He looked gun shy. He looked a little clueless in the later rounds because he just couldn't cut off the ring. Terence Crawford's ring generalship was on a whole different level last night. It reminded me of a prime Floyd Mayweather, the way he was able to dictate the pace of the fight and the way that he was able to move out of challenging positions throughout the fight. What he did wrong and what I think that he could have done a little bit of a better job, like if I had to rate his performance, obviously it was a 10 out of 10. So any feedback about what he could have done better is just me as a fan, trying to analyze and see what else could have made it better. But it was borderline perfect. He got the job done. He went on the scorecards, and it wasn't really close at all. It was a unanimous decisions, and the scores were 116, 112, and then the two other judges had 115, 113. And I think that that is actually a little bit favorable to Canelo, because I had it even more. I don't think Canelo won more than 3 rounds at all. Like he looked a little lost throughout the fight, and he was just swinging at air. And I think that overall, what Crawford could have done a little bit better from an entertainment point of view, I wanted to see him exchange a little more. I definitely wanted to see him plant his feet a little more and land some punches, because when he did chain together punches, when he did let his hands go outside of the jab and put together those combinations, boy, was it a work of art. Like, he was just so accurate with his punches. His shot selection was so diverse, hitting from angles, switching stands, and it was just a work of beauty. So the selfish fan in me, I would have loved to see him stand a little more and trade. But the analyst and just the analyst, as an analyst, I look at it and I'm like, he did the right thing. He did the exact right thing, where he stuck to his discipline. And as an observer, I think that you can't knock it off. It was a 10 out of 10 performance. He got the job done, and he becomes the first fighter in history to become undisputed champion in 3 weight classes. This is someone that built his profile at 140 pounds, moved on to 147 pounds, and put on a complete clinic. And against Errol Spence, who is a high-level elite fighter, someone that is also a future Hall of Famer, someone that was when he was up and coming, he was predicted to be the future of the welterweight division. Terence Crawford just came in, and after that fight, like, he literally took Spence's soul in that fight and finished him. And ever since then, he was, he was just chasing. He just kept chasing greatness. Moved up to 154, but you got to understand, at 154 pounds, he only had 1 fight. So between 147 and 168, he only had 1 fight. So he moved up over 21 pounds to fight an all-time great like Canelo, and he got the job done with his boxing skills. It was a display. He got the job done, working behind the jab, working the angles with the fundamentals of boxing. Shout out to his team, his trainers, his coach, his staff, everybody, because he looked to be in great shape, and his cardio did not look to be impacted by the weight gain. Neither was his power. Like, every time Canelo was trying to upload, he was able to pot him and really check him and put him back in line. And it stopped Canelo from really trying to overwhelm him or really let his hands go too much, because every time that he got out of the line, Crawford still had enough pop in his punches to keep him in check. So now we got to talk about Canelo, in front of 70,000 fans. What I love about Your Highness Turki Al-Sheikh is that he is putting on these amazing larger-than-life boxing events, and he's really into the show, the show side of the business. So the presentation was top-notch. The arena looked beautiful. The entrance hallway where they were coming out with all the Titantron graphics, it was just, so the technology was ever there. It was so good to look at, and it was just a really good presentation. So shout out to Dana White and Riyadh Season for just another fantastic event. The arena looked amazing. The 70,000 fans. I wish they actually had more musical performances. They only had 2. But Canelo, he looked good. He looked comfortable. He looked a little relaxed, maybe too relaxed, leading up to the fight, especially early on. This is someone that for the last few years, he hasn't been fighting the best of the best. He's fighting fighters that are not even ranked top 3, top 5 in his division. He's fighting guys that haven't been world champion before. So I do think that had a lot to do with this fight as well, because it seems that for the last few years, he's been taking on lesser greater opponents. A lot of the people that he defeated, they went on to lose in very, very one-sided ways their next fights. You look at Munguia, you look at Edgar Berlanga. These are 2 guys that, since fighting Canelo, they were both knocked out. So you got to question, how much does that have to play a factor in Canelo being ready for the fight? He wasn't fighting the best of the best, so he didn't have that momentum that he might have had he taken on, a tougher challenge, someone like a Benavidez, right? So this version of Canelo, it's funny too because he looked like the older and slower fighter, but ironically, he's actually younger than Crawford. So Canelo is actually 33 years old and Crawford is 37. But in the ring, you could never tell because Canelo's footwork, he left it at home. He looked flat-footed, he looked tired, he looked old, he looked slow, and he just couldn't cut off the ring. I think what he did wrong was that from the beginning, he was almost like a bull, pressuring the action, and he had to know that Crawford was going to try to box him. He had to know that Crawford had a variety of styles that he could lean into. He could have, tried to be the aggressive fighter. He could have, obviously switched stance or worked behind the jab, and it didn't seem like Canelo had any answer for the style that Crawford presented last night. From the moment the fight started, Canelo was very, very hesitant against a smaller man. I don't think he did a good job of cutting off the ring. I don't think he did a good job of working the body. You got to understand, Crawford gained over 21 pounds. Theoretically, that would have been enough reason to make you question his cardio. So if I was Canelo, why not? When you have him against the road with small opportunities, chain together some punches and finish with the body shot, which he's known for. He stalks his opponents, wears them down with multiple power shots on the arms, on the bodies, and eventually tries to get them out of there. But it seemed like last night he just couldn't cut off the ring. He was always just one step behind. What he did wrong was not cutting off the ring, not taking advantage of the small opportunities he had, not letting his hands go enough. He's someone that does not work off his jab at all. He rarely jabs. He uses his footwork and his head movement to set up his shots, which is great. But if the guy's not there for you to hit him, then, set up your punches. And I think he failed to set up his punches, and that's why he wasn't able to land any of them. If you look at the stats, the Terence Crawford landed 115 of 534 punches, and Canelo just landed 99 out of 338 punches. So I feel like at the end of the day, he wasn't even throwing that much. 338 is not a lot. 99 punches landed, that's not a lot at all. You're looking at maybe 9 to 10 punches per round in a 12-round fight. So I think that he just looked, he didn't look motivated. I don't know, was it a motivation? He didn't have that electricity. He didn't have that extra gear that he could tap into, and he just failed to adapt to Crawford's style. What he did right, I thought he did a really good job of defending punches. Crawford was rarely able to land anything significant. And I just think that, at a certain point, especially towards the later rounds, around 10 or 11, if you know that you're not winning, it's try to turn it to a slugfest. Try to get Crawford to really exchange with you and find an opening so you could counter him. And he just ran out of answers. I just don't think that, I don't know what he was doing in his preparation, but I just don't think that he prepared for the challenges that Crawford was going to bring. He was a bigger man, and he was rarely able to impose his side. I feel like when you first start fighting someone, you might have plan A, plan B, plan C, but if they don't work, then you got to at some point, turn it into a dogfight. It's kill or be killed. This is the biggest fight of your life in front of 70,000 fans, the majority of your fans on your weekend, which is Mexican Independence Day weekend. And I just don't think that he really took the fight to Crawford. I think that he was content with chasing him down throughout the ring and doing his best, but he wasn't really looking to change his strategy or change his approach. Maybe sit back a little bit, maybe try to get Crawford to come to you, maybe try to, maybe clinch and work off the clinch and dirty box a little bit, try to counter him coming off. Maybe try to put his back against the rope and work the body. I just don't think, I think last night we saw a flat-footed, one-dimensional Canelo, and I think that that's what led to his defeat. I don't know how motivated he was. It seems like he's motivated by the dollar bill, because at this point in the game, he looked like a prize fighter. Like he was just there to fight, do his best, and if plan A didn't work, survive enough to collect his huge prize. And it didn't seem like he had that dog inside of him, where he was really looking for a knockout or put it all on the line to get that victory. And because of it, he lost his titles. And at the end of the day, you have to give credit to both fighters for taking this fight at this point in their career. I feel like there's been a boxing renaissance ever since Turki Al-Sheikh got involved, and just in general with all the energy, there's been a demand of the best fighting the best, and now you're seeing a lot of undefeated fighters, taking on bigger challenges where back in the day, regardless of the money, they might have not taken that challenge. Even in the co-main event, you had a fantastic fight against two young, up-and-coming, undefeated fighters where back in the day, they might have built up these fighters multiple years, try to get them multiple title shots, make a lot of money, and then set them up for tough challenges. So I love what I'm seeing because I think that it's growing the sport. It makes it more engaging, more exciting. You're giving the fans the fights they want to see much more often, which gets people talking, and people talking about boxing much more often just brings more eyes to the sport, which brings more sponsors and more business opportunities for all the fighters. So I think that overall, you got to give it up to Turki Al-Sheikh, Zuffa Boxing. Dana White did a fantastic job last night. And shout out to Canelo for taking the fight. He was the larger name, and he really didn't have to take the fight, but he did. And at the end of the day, you can't knock him for falling short of greatness when he's already great. He didn't have to do this. And I actually read a report that he got paid $100 million for taking this fight. So that is an astronomical amount of money. He's already a wealthy fighter that's been collecting large, multiple 7, 8, 10-figure paychecks for the last years. So I don't know how much this changes his life, but $100 million, that is just, generational wealth that I won't be surprised if we don't see him fight again. I think that this version of Canelo probably would have gotten knocked out by Benavidez. I don't think that Benavidez would have given him enough opportunity to just make it to the scorecards like Crawford. Crawford was just working off the jab, and he didn't really inflict as much damage as Canelo as I thought he could, because when he did land, he was so accurate. I thought he actually could have hurt Canelo a little more, but I think that this version of Canelo, most likely this will be, one of the last fights we see from him. I'll be very surprised if he comes back within the next few months, or maybe Cinco de Mayo next year, but I would be very, very surprised if he fights again, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if he was to retire after this fight. For someone like Terence Crawford, I see the hunger. I see he is so focused on his legacy. I think that there's something to be said about him being underappreciated and being a dark horse for so many years that he feels he may not be getting the recognition he deserves after beating someone like Errol Spence, after beating so many tough opponents and being undisputed champion in 2 different weight classes. I don't think he has the name recognition that he thinks he should have. So because of that, I do expect him to come back and fight in bigger profile fights. So what is next for Terence Crawford? What is next for Canelo? For Canelo, like I said before, I don't think we're going to see him fight, and I won't be surprised if he retires. For Terence Crawford, I think that he's going to vacate the titles. I don't see him staying at that weight class for a long period of time. I think the only biggest name around that weight class would be David Benavidez, but David Benavidez is even a bigger guy now since moving up to 175. So there's no way that fight is going to happen. I see Errol Spence maybe settling into 154. But when I think of high-level opponents, I don't know. I don't know where you go from here. It's such a big legacy fight. Someone that I would think would be a fantastic matchup just for the purpose of legacy, and it'll be a fun fight for the fans and almost just a further passing of the torch. I would be very interested to see him fight Manny Pacquiao. Why not? At this point in the game, he got nothing less to prove. Why not get a paycheck? Why not give someone like Manny Pacquiao, a Hall of Famer, just one last big mega fight? And it's a legend versus a current legend. So 2 legends of the sport. You have a Hall of Famer fighting a future Hall of Famer, the current megastar fighting a former megastar. And I think that if Manny Pacquiao is still looking to fight, why not? Why not have that further passing of the torch moment? But when I think of larger than life fights, I think for Crawford, that's kind of like the only one around the weight class. In 147, 154, I just don't think there's any other mega stars outside of like a Pacquiao fight that would move the needle, unless you can drag Floyd Mayweather out of retirement, which I doubt he would ever agree to that. I'm very interested to see where he goes from here. But overall, a fantastic event, a great undercard. The co-main event delivered. Fernandez Vargas Jr. Losing his undefeated record to Colin Wash. So big shout out to Colin Wash. Big victory for him. Very humble guy, very hard worker. And I think overall the presentation and everything on Netflix has been great for the sport of boxing. More people saw boxing last night than ever before. And rising tides raises all ships. So where do we go from here? I don't know, but I'm excited to see and go on this journey with each and every one of you. Before we wrap up this podcast, I'd be remiss if I don't send out my condolences to the Hall of Famer and legendary fighter Ricky Hatton. Speaking of Manny Pacquiao, that was a legendary fight that really skyrocketed Manny Pacquiao's fame. But outside of that fight with Ricky Hatton, it was his no-nonsense, aggressive, brawling fighting style that brought him fame, and he was such a great representation of the UK, and former world champion, and he passed away at the young age of 46. So our condolences from the First Strike podcast. Big rest in peace, and my condolences to his family and friends. May he rest in peace, and his memory will live forever. Other than that wraps it up for this episode of the First Strike podcast. I'm your host. I go by the Marathon Don. If you love this, make sure you subscribe. Check us out. Brand new episode discussing everything combat sports related each and every Monday. So tune in. I appreciate you guys rocking with me. Thank you so much for the support. The channel has grown so much since launching this year. And I promise to give you guys more content, more insight analysis from the Marathon Don. So tune in. Check it out. Appreciate you guys. I am out.